Well, hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Angela from Difference Press, and I'm so excited to be here today with one of our newest authors, Maya Manso. Maya is the author of The Photographer's Focus. Do what you love, tell your clients stories with images, and have the business of your dreams. Maya, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I know you have a background as a photographer and many other things. Now you are a best-selling author. Let's kick this off by letting people know, what's this book about and why did you write it?
This book is about really following your passions and living your dreams. I wrote the book because I had a photography business focused on weddings for 9 years. And over that time, we helped about 250 couples get married. And it was such a joy for me to be doing what I love and really being able to make an impact on all of these couples' lives. And when a photographer wants to earn their income doing photography, the hardest part is the business stuff
Mhm.
because they know photography, they know their passion, but the business is hard. If you've never done business before, the business is hard. And so I wrote this book to give away all of the secrets that I used to build up my photography business. And I started with not a photography background, not a business background, and really just wanted to do this. And so it was something that I could learn about for the rest of my life. And so I just dug in and I learned. And it's just amazing to be in charge of your own destiny.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about, because I think it's been such an interesting period the last few years of people pursuing their passions, leaving corporate jobs, deciding it's not worth it to do something for 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week that I don't even enjoy. But how do
Mhm.
you balance, if photography is your passion and then you make it your business? Do you lose a hobby when you gain a job? How do you balance staying in love with your work, doing what you love, if you're leaning on it for to pay your bills?
That's really a great question. And I think it's really about being very conscious about what you do.
Mm.
A lot of people, when they're like, I want to be a photographer, they're so afraid of not having enough money, of not having enough clients, that oftentimes they're willing to do whatever photography comes their way. For example, I loved wedding photography specifically. I loved being part of the day. I loved telling the story. Um, and then as I met and really connected deeply with these couples, they would come back to me for maternity photos and for baby photos and for family
The
photos.
story continues.
The story continues. And I loved that part of it. And when they would come back to me, I loved continuing their story. But I chose specifically not to go out as I grew those parts of my business. I didn't go out and like suddenly market myself as a maternity photo photographer because that wasn't really where my passion was. So I think it's really about being very intentional. And it's also about making sure that you're honoring who your client is and what they want. If you're following your passion and you're helping the people you want to help, then I think you're in a much better position um, to find the customers that are right for you.
I do think client selection, I know for me and my business, I do what I love. I've been passionate about books since I was 5 years old. And I do what I love. But for me, one of the secrets is picking amazing clients like you that I enjoy working with. So I have to ask the question, you probably, after 250 weddings, got asked a lot, which is, what about Bridezilla? What do you do when you have a difficult client?
Out of all of those weddings, I would say I had one bridezilla. Now I had a lot of momzillas, And
Okay. I've heard about that too.
yeah, I had a lot of, there's usually, so at every wedding, there was like one person who was cranky. There was one person who wanted to be a photographer and wanted me to teach them the whole day.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Okay.
Oh yeah. People would show up with camera equipment and they'd be like, "Can I follow you around? Can you tell me this?" And I'm like, "I will help you. I will not help you all of the time because I am here to do a job first." Um, but I think it makes a difference of who you connect with. And the more you can hold true with, I can help you because our styles fit versus I don't think you're the client for me. I mean, I've told clients they're not the client for me. I made a mistake once. I knew she wasn't my client. I took it anyway. It was a nightmare.
Error. And
And
I'm like, that's the worst money to make. You end up working for $2 an hour and hating every second of it.
yes. And y- you know, the connection to me, the connection to the client was the biggest part of it. I have a funny story about that.
Hmm.
When I first started marketing wedding photography, I of course booked booths at bridal shows because that's where they all are.
That's how I got my wedding photographer.
Exactly. Well, the wedding show that I would book booths at, the first 2 years, I took the standard marketing materials and I tried to sell photography. And I did some, it was good. But the third year, I'm like, you know what? I'm not here to sell photography. I bought 1,000 stress balls and put my logo on it. And as people would walk by, I'd put my hand out, hand them a stress ball and say, "Can I take the stress out of planning your wedding?" And they
Oh.
were like, "Oh my God, yes." And we would start a conversation and it would go something like, what do you do?" And over time, that would that would tell me who was my client or not. Because if like they part of my service was taking the stress out of their wedding.
Mm-hmm.
In my camera bag, I would carry bobby pins and safety pins and sewing kits, and I had umbrellas in my car because I was there to take the stress out of whatever I could. And so the stress ball was actually the perfect introduction for me because it just created this rapport. And if they kept walking, awesome. They would have anyway if I'd handed them my materials. And if they were like, "Oh, I need you," then they'd be like, "What do you do?" And some people would already have a photographer and they'd be like, "Oh, do you want your ball back?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. Like, it's marketing material. Take it." And they're like, "We'll send other people to you." And I'm like, "Awesome." And the ones that didn't have photographers, then they were like, "Oh, you're not here to pressure sales me. Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to come in. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to talk to you." And it's that connection. And that really, to a large degree, helped weed out who who fit my vibe.
Mm. So key, so key. So we talked about the business piece, we talked about the doing what you love piece. What we haven't talked about is telling your client's story. So give me some of your thoughts on storytelling in a photography business. How does that come into play?
Well, a wedding day is a love story. So it's about all of those special touches. I mean, brides will spend years sometimes planning this, planning that, putting those special touches in. But one of my favorite stories is one of my brides hired me to photograph her parents' 40th wedding anniversary renewal of their vows. And she got me their original wedding photos.
Mm-hmm.
And her parents knew they were going to the church where they had gotten married and then to the small venue where they had the reception. What they didn't know is that the daughter had arranged for their entire wedding party to join them for lunch at the wedding venue. And we recreated several of the photos from their original wedding. And
Oh,
then I
wow.
put together an album that was their original wedding photos and the 40th wedding anniversary photos or renewal photos. And then we told the whole story of that. And it was one of the most beautiful and intimate things I have ever done. And that to me is the joy of telling their stories. You know, as a wedding photographer, I would walk into the room where the bride's getting ready with all of her loved ones and her bridesmaids and the stories that would come out and the just so many details. And it's getting the photo with the bride with the grandmother getting dressed, or there's just so many moments. And you want the bride and her family, or the couple and their family in that moment, to be in the present and to experience it. And so many times I would send the couple their images and they would go, I forgot that that moment happened. How did you know that moment was going to happen? And it's magic. It is just magic what that brings back to people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So much joy when you are doing what you love. You can get a copy of Maya's book, The Photographer's Focus, Do What You Love, Tell Your Client Story with Images, and Have the Business of Your Dreams at thephotographersfocus.com. Maya, anything else you would want people to know if they are looking to learn more about finding you, getting your book, working with you? Final thoughts?
Just this has turned into such a love of my life, pursuing this passion. And I help people with all different kinds of businesses that they love find their way.
Well, I think it's a better world when people are doing what they love. I, of course, am biased, and I know you are too, but
Absolutely.
doing what you love is such a gift, not just to yourself and your family, but for sure to the world. So check out The Photographer's Focus. And Maya, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you.